Daryl B. Harris. He is an associate professor and former chief of political science at Howard University. He was the recipient of the 2014-2015 Fulbright Distinguished Research Award. The scholarly focus of his teaching and research is the philosophical underpinnings of Black political phenomena. His work combines methods of Africological and political analysis with the goal of advancing Afrocentric understandings of the world and exploring the nuances, interstices, and subtleties of previous critical works. Harris has found that the opening for innovation in the way we assess racial and cultural conflicts remains wide open. Harris has taught Black politics and political theory courses first at the University of Connecticut and then at Howard University, his current institutional affiliation since 2003. We welcome to the Reading Circle microphones Dr. Daryl B. Harris. Dr. Harris, good morning.
Yes, good morning. Good morning.
It is good to have you here because, as I said, when we were off the air, most of the contributors, not totally all of them, but a probably good 80% of the contributors to the book we've had on the show over the last couple of months. And we've been talking about their various chapters and contributions. So now we're getting the one who put it all together on the show, who saw the project on the bigger picture. I know each one of them kind of contributed their chapter, but now you were responsible for all of the chapters. So it's good to have you on here to talk about the project as well. So again, good morning.
Yes, again, good morning.
So, News Chaser. All right. Usually, my first question when I have my author guests on, it's kind of like, where did the writing and the interest and the love for writing and all that begin? But I'm going to take a little bit different approach. Since you were the editor of the project, my question to you, first question is going to be, where did the project come from? Where did the concept come from?
Okay. Well, to be fair to Ayo Sakai, she introduced the topic to me. So I think it's something she just had in the back of her mind. And, of course, we've been talking about Trump from the time he announced that he was running for president. Actually, of course, that really perked our interest. But with credit to her, she's the one who brought me the idea, and we batted around. And, of course, we came up with the idea it would be something to write on. And then it evolved, of course, into bringing other people into the project, the contributors, that is. Yes.
Well, as I was sharing with you, as I would have each contributor on each week, interestingly or coincidentally enough, or by divine providence, however one would like to see it,
yes,
it seems like the president would always do something that would fit right into whatever the topic was for that Saturday. So something throughout the week, or either something even the day before, would occur that would segue right into what we'd be talking about on each chapter. And for those of you, if you don't know what book we're talking about, if you recall, the last couple of weeks I broke away from it because I had guests from different authors and different books. But up until that point, like into the August, September timeframe, I had guests each week that were contributors to the book News Chaser, The Rhetoric of Trump in Essays and Commentary. And each chapter dealt with something else that, for the most part, as I kind of like it, Dr. Harris, the way you put it in terms about being duped, there's different areas of where,
yes,
in our view, now again, the views and opinions heard here are solely those of the host and guests, doesn't necessarily have to be supported by the radio station or the university or anything along the lines. But in our view, a lot of areas where the country really has been duped, and I'm looking for the actual, I'm trying to go to the front of the book here where I can kind of read off. Here we go, some of the chapter names. So let's say, for example, and I have it right here in front of me. Chapter 1, The Fallacy of Trumpism. Chapter 2, Rhetoric and the Whispers of Race. Chapter 3, Misogyny on the Campaign Path. Chapter 4, Feeding the Trump Base. The Art of the Rhetoric of White Nationalism. Kenzo was on here a few weeks ago. We talked about that. Us Against Them. Islamophobia, Radical Conversation, or Conservatism, rather.
yes,
Anti-intellectualism and for-profit education. Brian and Donna was on the show 2 weeks ago with that one. Anti-immigration and isolation. Aitza, she appeared. Anne Marie Waterman, she was the first guest. Privatizing education. And white nationalism, racism and discrimination, politics and race, Racism and Rhetoric. Jamie was on here as well. Islamophobia, Racism and Rhetoric, Misogyny, and Jerica Bean was here with us as well. So a good number, and a couple of folks I've left their name off as I was going through. I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. But they've appeared, and we've talked about these various things. So now, again, as I said, you are the one that kind of pulled everything together. And I was reading the introduction, and it's very interesting in terms of, it said, the lamentations of Twitter duped and Twitter dumped on. So let's talk a little bit about that. I'm really keying on this word dupe because I agree with you, by the way. Let's go all the way back from, because this is what I tell folks all the time. I don't give Trump too much credit, but the one thing I do credit him with is the fact that he really, during the campaign, did not put on an act. It was not a situation wherein he acted one way during the campaign, and then once he got elected, he changed over. The same thing he was doing in the campaign is the same thing he's doing in his presidency, yet he made it in. Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about that in terms of, because there's one part of me said we was duped, and then there's another part of me saying, but we got what we saw.
Yes, indeed. So, we certainly did get the Trump that we've always have seen.
Right.
He demonstrated this behavior for quite some time. Going back to his days in New York City, running his family's real estate business and the way he treated people there, whether it was people seeking apartments, African Americans being turned away, from people who worked for him stiffing subcontractors, not paying them. This kind of behavior goes back a long time. Somewhere along the way, he has figured out, and this is where you might want to give him a check mark for, not that it's a good thing necessarily, but that he's figured out how to manipulate the public in terms of their attitude.
Correct.
And of course he perfected it with the television, the reality program, the Apprentice. And that's where he discovered that he can really shape the way people are thinking, especially those who at the base and have base thinking, that is. And so whether we're going back to the Central Park Five, those young teenagers, Black and Latino teenagers who were put in jail for an alleged crime, rape against a woman. Turns out, of course, that did not happen. Trump would put a full-page ad out in the daily newspaper.
Correct.
Calling for them to get the death penalty. And, of course, we all know about birtherism.
Correct.
The ultimate tap into the base of American society. Here's the president, Barack Obama, the first African-American president. Trump goes after him for 5 years, asking him to show his papers.
Right.
This is apartheid, right? Show me your papers.
Right.
Mr. President,
right.
Show me your papers. You are not legitimate. You are an imposter. For 5 years. And of course, fabricating that he had investigators on the ground in Hawaii. Presumably, they claimed that it was a hot trail. He was on to something. Of course, this was all a fabrication. But it forced Obama to show his papers. Nonetheless, he had that effect. And so there were, if you go back looking at the public opinion numbers, there are, within the Republican Party, to this day, a very high percentage of them thinking that Obama is a secret Muslim, that he wasn't born in this country. He's an imposter. That's how they see him. And so that really set the stage for this base, this rabid base. By the way, I'm familiar with, I grew up in the steel mill town in Ohio.
Okay.
So I recall that whole region. I grew up in Steubenville, Ohio, so not far from Pittsburgh.
Right.
Town. All that region is steel mill country, and it has been devastated by the steel mill industry declining here in the United States. So a lot of these people, everybody I knew, for example, worked either in the steel mill or worked in an industry connected with the steel mill.
Correct.
That was the nature of the type of town I grew up. So imagine, a lot of these people out of work. and what that does to the local economies in these areas, and what that does to the morale of people who are in their 40s and 50s. Suddenly, their jobs are gone. These are the people that Trump easily tapped into.
Right.
And by the way, people who traditionally voted Democrat, which is remarkable. So none of us saw this coming, that he could actually win. And yet, there was a sizable chunk of white America who put him into office. That's a reality. And it's not just low income or whites who are not educated. It's cut across the various socioeconomic statuses. So he's here, and he is governing the same way he campaigned.
That's absolutely right. He really is. I mean, not one bit has changed. So as I said earlier, it's not as if he acted one way, put on a dog and pony show during the campaign, and then turned into this monster, for lack of a better term. He was the same way then. That's what I'm saying. The fact that you have that many people, because this is where I kind of see it. I kind of sum it up as, you know what it is? He now personified and is able to voice and say what a lot of people feel. And even though these people may be smiling in your face, deep down inside, they really are, because I posted something on my social media site the other day saying the administration is not listening to the people, or is it?
Yeah.
With a question mark.
We also bear in mind it's not just Trump.
Correct.
He has the presidency, the entire executive bureaucracy.
Correct.
So you got even more dangers as a Jeff Sessions over the Justice Department as an Attorney General, or Scott Pruitt over the EPA. Of course, one of them is gone already, Tom Price,
right?
Lavish traveling habits. But these are the type of people who claim they want to destroy the administrative state, make it impossible to govern effectively, tear down those structures that help people. I mean, just yesterday, right? He pulls back on what is this, the abortion. Or the coverage that women can get going to the doctor.
Correct.
This is every single day there is something really almost insane that comes straight out of the White House. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And we haven't even gone a year into this thing. And a lot of us wonder if we're going to make it.
Well, I mean, that's absolutely right. It's because it's been this much of a frenzy and this much chaos in the first 9 or 10 months. Like, how are we going to be able to keep up at this pace? Which I personally don't even think the president can do it personally. But that's his style. But I think at his age and with the responsibility of that office, I don't even know if he can make it just as a human being. But maybe he will, because he's comfortable with this. But it's constant chaos, and everybody say, well, he likes it that way. Well, maybe for him that works, but when you're running a country, it doesn't work. And at some point, you just kind of wonder, well, when do the people rise up and say enough is enough?
We shouldn't underestimate what is going on. I mean, if you just take the rollback on the environmental protection measures, all of these things are being rolled back one after another all over the country. It's an attack. It is an attack. This is part of the racial dimension of it. It's an attack on Obama's legacy.
Correct.
As if they want to erase everything Obama.
I agree with you, and that's I said the same thing. It's almost as if his agenda is, he doesn't have an agenda, but the agenda is, let me undo everything the African American president did. Yeah. That's almost the way now folks will debate and argue, but I mean, that's the way it appears. Because everything Obama put in place, Trump seems to be hell-bent on taking it back out.
Every single thing.
Every single thing. It really is.
You couple this, as you recall, when Obama was elected in his first term, and Mitch McConnell, then the fill-in, the Senate leader, majority leader, the Senate for the Republicans, he announced that he wanted to make Obama a one-term president.
Correct.
He vowed from the very, very beginning that they were going to obstruct every single proposal that came out of his office. But they're not done with him. They're not done. They say, okay, even after he's gone, we will continue to attack everything he has done. These people have been focused on him. It's almost at a criminal level. That's how awful it is, and willing to drag the country through the mud, and tragically for us, turning the clock back on those critical issues affecting our community, from voting rights, employment, education, every single housing, every single area that has played a role, significantly enhancing the prospects of black achievement. All these things are being not just challenged, but attacked and rolled back, and making it appear, of course, this bold narrative out of the conservative camp, as if we are undeserving of any type of government assistance. Correct.
I mean, that...
just one more thought on this, just continuing the thought, of course. This whole business about white folk are the victims.
Right.
Victims of race-conscious public policy. I mean, here you have, one of the most fallacious arguments you can make. All of a sudden, those who benefit from the racial state, if you will, or the racial contract, as Charles Mills put it in his work, all of a sudden they are the victims. We are the victimizers. And this is, the opinion that the country feels they're right for this. Who would have ever thought that the President of the United States would not condemn neo-Nazis, flag-waving, Confederate flag-waving, people who are intent on violence? Who would have ever thought that they would get a pass?
Correct.
And here they are, 2017, getting a pass.
Correct.
So we got a very, very dangerous man in the White House. I believe he's also itching for wanting to show off the U.S.'s military might. He needs a war. Wars make presidents popular.
Right.
Even if the wars go bad, even if they're bad wars. It's just something about this country and its violence, its addiction to guns. As we saw, of course, very tragically the other night in Las Vegas. I mean, even after massacre, I picked up a newspaper following this tragedy. A mass shooting happens practically every single day in the United States. And that's defined as a minimum of 4 people either being killed or injured.
Wow.
Considered a mass shooting in the United States. They occur every single day in the United States. You take a calendar, the last 3 months, and you have each day be a block. And you just color in the block where there's a mass killing. Almost 98% of those blocks will be filled in. And of course, the most spectacular ones, of course, involve, dozens of people being killed and injured. But, 4 or more, those happen every single day in the United States. The only place on the planet that happens.
Right.
And, if you can have a Sandy Hook where little children are massacred, along with their teachers. You have out at a concert, you have people mowed down by these awful guns in the machinery that is able to carry this out. And you still can't get the Republicans to do one single thing on gun control. It's the darndest thing.
You're correct. And it was something you were saying earlier about the whole notion of trying to flip the script or now become the victim. That was the whole thing behind the commentary with Puerto Rico. Whenever they want everything to do everything for them. There was some read between the lines, or as they say, the dog whistle in there. There was some read between the lines in that comment.
Yes.
And it's this.
Yes, I'm agreeing with you on how incredible. Puerto Rico is very vivid. This is how we treat these people.
Right.
They're not real American.
Right.
Because if real Americans, we would have responded much more quickly. This is the kind of stuff, the signals he sends out. He belittles the mayor of San Juan.
Right.
It's absolutely incredible. None of us has ever seen anything like this. And you know what's remarkable about the hypocrisy. That these are the same people who preach morality and value, family values to us.
Yes.
That's what they preach, correct?
Yes, you're absolutely right.
You know, and is there anything family friendly or family, of values that comes out of Trump's mouth? Not hardly. He berates people. He goes before audiences and lock her up. He goes before the Boy Scouts and plays politics. This is incredible stuff. And his inner circle looks the way he likes things to happen.
And the thing I think for me that's most astounding is one thing, the fact that he does that, but there's another thing that there's enough people who actually like that, because there's a large, but that's what I was saying earlier. There's a large body of folks that's loving this. I mean, I would pretty much say there's probably just as many, if not more, who are loving this as those of us who are astonished by it. Yeah. And that's part of that to me is a bigger issue than just Trump in and of himself, is the fact that you have people, and this goes back to what I was saying. You have folks that, talking about hypocrisy, you're absolutely right. You have folks who literally will be with us, hang with us, smile in our face, claim they're this, that, and the other, but deep down inside on a subconscious and in some instance conscious level, the true feeling is what's coming out of Trump.
Yes. I thought, and you're certainly on to it. And I thought this early on during the campaign, that there was a segment of white America that wanted to have a boisterous, unapologetic white nationalist. That's what I thought when he was running the campaign, and I still think that today.
I do too.
They want someone who's rough around the edges, who will get in people's faces, who will call people out of their racial names. They're eating this stuff up. But this is what I was thinking about, people who are being duped.
Yes.
These are the same people who are supporting him, who, if he's able to get through his repeal of Obamacare, they would lose their health care. That's
correct.
Duped. He's being led one way, and then when he gets what he wants, you will also be a victim of some of the rollback that he's intending to happen. And
see, bingo, you hit the nail right on the head there.
Draining the swamp. I mean, look.
Right.
They're all super rich people.
Right.
Every last one of them.
Right.
The billionaires, the multimillionaires, over and over and over. These are the only people around him.
No, you're absolutely right.
But he's a populist, though, right? He can call a meeting in Youngstown, Ohio, or Huntsville, Alabama, and the thousands will turn out cheering him, egging him on. This is not a good thing. And yes, even people within his party know that he is unhinged. He's not temperamentally fit for this office. He's not.
But see, to me, that's the more dangerous and scary part is, like we were saying a couple of minutes ago, there are folks who are eating this up. But at the same time, if you notice Trump's pattern, he is loyal to no one.
Nobody.
Now, he demands and requires loyalty, but he is loyal to even his folks. He's not loyal. And when I say that, I'm saying, look at all the folks between January and now who have left office. Bannon, Spicer, and on down the list. You just said Price. And I saw something yesterday or this morning where it won't be long for Kelly. So it's kind of like he is loyal to absolutely no one, and he's going to do the same thing to his supporters. And I put that on social media the other day. It won't be long before he turns on his so-called beloved supporters. And at that point, that's when they're going to realize they were duped.
Yeah.
And it's going to be too late then.
Yes. There's another thing, very subtle thing that's not often discussed, and it's because it doesn't always appear like really exciting, like a horse race, if you will. But the media, in the mass media or television, it's presented to us like a horse race all the time. Is he winning? Is he losing? How's he doing? But that real subtle thing that is about character. Character is a compulsion, meaning you have a tendency to behave in a certain way. And that's something you develop relatively early on in life. By the time you're a teenager, your character can pretty much be fixed. And so you just think of someone like him who's never had anything difficult in terms of one's lifestyle.
Right.
He's been rich his whole life. And everything has come to him very easily in that regard. Having a driver, I don't even know if he knows how to drive because he's driven around. He's gold-plated everything, with, your toilet handles, 24 karat. This is how he lives.
Right.
He lives in absolute luxury all the time. And it's just something about his character that's very, very problematic. And, of course, now he's in his 70s, and you don't change your character.
Correct.
At age. It's absolutely fixed by then. And so what we're seeing, we will see the rest of the presidency, if he makes it. And all of us, of course, are those of us who are sane in this, right, are very much concerned. We got a very, very dangerous person who will hurt a lot of people. He's already hurting people.
Right.
This birth control measure that he rolls back just yesterday. This is incredible stuff. Women, the right of employers who can deny insurance coverage to women for contraceptives.
Right.
We're not talking about just getting it through Obamacare now. We're talking about your employer who offers you health insurance now can deny you that coverage for contraceptives.
But see, this is back to that duping you were talking about in terms of now the very people that are his cheerleaders are going to wind up being victims because now that's going to impact these folks as well. This is where I kind of liken this to. When I listened to you say it, what came to my mind is I deal with children every day. And a lot of times we have the kids who are instigators and the kids who actually fight. And a lot of times the kids who actually fight or fought, the only reason they did it is because of the instigators who pushed them up to it.
Right.
I always share with them.
Oh, I like that.
You know what? They want to see a fight, but they don't want to be in a fight.
They want to be in it.
Right. There's a difference. Like I want to see it. I'm going to instigate this thing so I can see it, but I won't be the one getting hit. I won't be the one sitting in the principal's office. Well, that's what's going on here to me with this whole thing with Trump. Trump is a great instigator.
Yeah.
He's instigating these things, but the folks that's going to be impacted the most, the ones that thought they were just going to be watching, they're actually going to be hit.
Absolutely. They're getting hit too.
Right.
That's right.
They are going to be hit, and by that time, it's going to be too late.
Too late.
And that's what.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying that's what they're not seeing.
I'm just and I never thought this way, by the way. I always knew, like I said, I grew up in Ohio, so I grew up around these type of people. So I've never had any illusions about this undercurrent of racism in American society. It's a sickness unto death. That's how deep this problem is. So, all you need is someone skilled at rhetoric, someone who's, and Trump is perfect here. He's figured out how to tap into these people's their mindset that they're in, and egging them on. They want somebody like this,
right? A
character out here who's angry at everybody as well. So the whole country is angry, right? It's crazy. It's crazy. This is what they want, though,
right?
And meanwhile, Sessions is doing the dirty work. Why Sessions tolerated being berated by Trump because Sessions is, he has an agenda. He wants to,
right,
and he's quietly carrying it out, turning back proposed changes, turning back changes that are already on the books. I mean, with these consent decrees that these police departments have with the Justice Department to stop brutalizing our people, Sessions is turning all that back,
right. And the thing is, when Trump was in Long Island, he was giving this speech to the police. He got up there and said, "Don't be too nice to him. Don't be too nice." And everybody knows who the them is. Everybody knows don't be too nice to him. When you're putting him in the car, hit the head against the top of the seat, whatever. He was literally, coming from the president of the United States, he was licensing. Now, not every police officer bought into that, but I'm quite sure there were some that did. Like, hey, it came from the president. The president said I could do it.
The president should not be sending those messages.
Correct.
They should be the opposite. Because all you're saying is, we got your back. If you engage in this behavior, we won't be the ones coming at you. And these people they've now, in another policy that Obama tried to scale back on, was the selling of the military style equipment to local police departments. Well, Trump is opening that back up, and he can start telling it, And so all this is feeding into this mindset. So of course, when these encounters that black people have with these local police departments, now they turn violent because these people come amped up and ready for it because of the kind of equipment that they have.
Right.
And they want to use it. So instead of bettering intergroup relations, we got an administration that is intent on driving deeper wedges between groups. So by the time we reach 2018 and 2020, who knows what this country is going to look like? Handing it right back would probably not unlike what has happened in previous Republican administrations, meaning handing it over to the corporate class. They basically robbed the country of everything, and then we got a big giant problem on our hands again.
But this time it's going to be worse because there's a lot more things that's being unseated. There's there's a attitude that's been started back up, been kicked back up. Well, actually, it's been dormant, and now they're empowered and emboldened because it felt like, well, hey, that's what we've been wanting to say, but we can't say it, and now we have our leader saying it. So guess what? We can say it too. I mean, I notice a shift in folks I deal with. I notice with folks I deal with a subtle little shift in how they come at me and approach me and talk to me. And there's definitely some boldness there that has come about since this president has taken office. And it is, again, like I said, the folks that are, they say be careful what you ask for, you just may get it. That's exactly what's going on now, because this is what they asked for. And I'm looking at it, I don't know, there's a story in the Bible where the people wanted a king. And the prophet was really kind of like, saying, you really don't need the king, so forth. It's in 2 Samuel. I was trying to look it up while we were on the air, and I'll get it because I've been posting it. But the story is the same. God was telling, I think it was Samuel or whoever was telling, they're not railing against you. They're railing against me. He said, but okay, give them the king. But this is what's going to happen as a result of getting their king. And that's the way I'm seeing this whole thing playing out. Everybody, we want tough. We want tough. We want, smack talking. We want this. That. Okay, fine. I'm going to give it to you. And now you're going to see what's going to be a result of that. And that's, to me, as I sit here and watch everything going on, that's exactly what's going on. I'm like, okay, you got this king that you wanted. You got this so-called leader, because you couldn't get any more suave, any more sophisticated, any more intelligent than who we had in terms of Obama. Right. And I think that is another thing, because me personally, I think Trump is extremely insecure. He's rich. He's had it good all his life, but I also think he's insecure. Yeah. And I honestly believe he's extremely jealous of the success that Obama had.
Yeah, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. I think you're right on there. There's another development that's underway. A few scholars pay attention to it, and this is the current rollback that we are experiencing right now. It's actually been going on for a longer period of time, but we think about historical periods, we think about the Reconstruction period and the rollbacks that followed Reconstruction, denying voting rights, putting in place the segregation regime. This is at the turn of the 20th century when those things were put in place, ending Reconstruction.
Right.
There are those who argue that we're in a similar type of period, a rollback so huge that we'll have, sort of this post-civil rights period being a period when all these victories were taken back.
Right.
And if that's at work, they want to do away with the Voting Rights Act. The first, in 2013, the Shelby versus Holder case was the first blow struck at the Voting Rights Act.
Right.
Effectively nullifying Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act. And then, of course, all the southern states followed up that decision with putting in place more stringent voter suppression measures. So we already mentioned affirmative action. We see on all these fronts these concerted efforts on conservative forces to roll back the victories of the 1960s, the Voting Rights Act, Civil Rights Act, those programs, those Great Society programs that expanded opportunities in American society, educational opportunities, employment opportunities. So that movement, the 1960s movement, is what expanded the idea of democracy, if you will, you can put it that way, in this country. And, of course, other groups modeled their struggles after the struggle of the 1960s.
Correct.
So now everybody's under attack. We just mentioned, on the contraceptive issue just a few minutes ago. All these groups are under attack.
Correct.
That people thought they had won, being slowly taken away, slowly eroded. And the flip side, of course, is they're handing the keys over to the wealthiest people in the country.
Correct. That's the irony of it all. The people that care about you the least, that's who you handing the keys over to.
Handing the keys to them. And they're doing their work. They're doing the work that they've been assigned to do, come in and deconstruct the administrative state. Bannon was not shy about
not at all.
What they wanted to do.
Not at all. That was his agenda from the get-go. As a matter of fact, folks were kind of they think, Trump was kind of like his patsy. That's the one that can get it done is him. When those two linked up, Bannon already had that in mind whenever he aligned with Trump, more so than Trump aligning with him.
I tell you, Mark, I tell, because I'm on a college campus, I'm around very young people.
Right.
And, you look and you know that with the kind of changes, the Supreme Court, for example, and it's not just the Supreme Court, it's the entire federal court system. They're putting in place very conservative judges, and the decisions they make last for generations.
Correct.
They're not stuff that just lasts for, a year or some months. These last generations. So our children will be experiencing this new environment, where you have more restrictions, more hostility, and then just couple that. If you really think about it, you just put all this stuff together, and you think about, like where I work at Howard, the whole area has been gentrified.
Correct.
So even that part is part of this overall process, where now the more upscale whites are moving back into the city. They're bringing that attitude with them as well.
Right.
Bringing that attitude of hostility with them as well. They may not be as crude as Donald Trump, but the attitude is still there. This attitude of white preeminence.
Well, that's what I was talking about a couple of minutes ago. I've seen a resurgence of that since he won. It's almost as if now, you know what? Hey, we can come out of the closet. I mean, everybody else is coming out of the closet for whatever they come out of the closet for. But now the supremacists and the racists and the everything else can. Hey, we don't have to hide this anymore. We don't have to kowtow in their minds to civil rights. We can be just as bold as we want to be because our president is like that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, I mean, even like you were talking earlier about the whole gun thing. If we truly wanted to get this gun thing under control, one of the first places we'd start would be with these toy manufacturers. Because I walk in bodegas and see a gun that looks like a real gun that's a toy for $1.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
Yeah, $1.
Oh, wow.
Like it's hanging up there. It's hanging up there on up above the counter where you go to pay for $1.
Oh, my.
So that's what I'm saying. If we really wanted to start, we'd start hitting it at that level. We'd start hitting it at some of these video game levels. And then we'd take it all the way up to the real gun manufacturers.
It's out of control now.
It really is.
And the NRA has demonstrated their superior might in the game of politics.
Right.
Nobody can touch them. They will not budge an inch because the NRA will run people against them in the primary.
Correct.
They will fund their opposition. This is how powerful these people are. They're like all powerful. And you're not supposed to say that kind of thing in American, pluralism. Like there's a group that's all powerful, but this group, they don't lose.
Right.
Ever lose, no matter how bad the massacre, no matter how bloody the fields are. The NRA wins.
No, because they take the standpoint, if everybody had a gun, it wouldn't have happened. That's the standpoint they take. Well, if everybody had been armed, no one would have gotten shot. It's like, that ideology is flawed, but that's their thinking.
There's no evidence of that. This is just a rhetoric, or campaign rhetoric. People love their guns, Mark. I mean, I've never, and these are the people who they really think that the government they have their guns to protect themselves against the government who will come get them. This is how they're thinking. They're stockpiling. And, in such a manner is just flat out ridiculous. These military style guns.
Well, clearly, this latest assassin out there in Las Vegas, he had some crazy number that was stockpiled in his house and in the hotel room.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it really is. And see, again, I'm going back to what I did find the verse I was looking for, and I'll read an excerpt out of it where this is where God is speaking to the people. He says, all right, listen what the people are saying to you. They haven't rejected they're rejecting me. So he said, but I'm going to give them their king. And this is what the king is going to do. This is what the king who will reign over you will claim as his rights. Now, this was back then in biblical days, but we can insert whatever we want to insert for 2017. He will take your sons and make them serve with his chariots and horses, and then will run in front of his chariots. Some he will assign to be commanders of thousands and commanders of 50s, and others to plow his ground and reap his harvest, and still others to make weapons of war and equipment for his chariots. He will take your daughters to be perfumers and cooks and bakers. He will take the best of your fields and vineyards and olive groves and give them to his attendants. He will take a tenth of your grain and of your vintage and give it to his officials and attendants. Your male and female servants and the best of your cattle and donkeys he will take for his own use. He will take a tenth of your flocks, and you yourselves will become his slaves. When that day comes, you will cry out for relief from the king you have chosen, but the Lord will not answer you in that day. Now, like I said, you can insert in what you want, but that story is the same thing that's going on here. We have the one who just was driven out of his office. It was that Price, right? Right. The health guy, the one that was in charge of health. Yes.
Flying around on jets.
Right.
This is this class. Again, I think I'm just sort of expanding on your idea who have everything, they get in office, and they still just taking from the class. Right.
And he was the one, I remember early on, he was on one of the town hall meetings when they were talking about the whole thing and he was just, about how Obamacare was this, that, and the other, and he was defending the insurance companies and the so forth and the so on, and so now he the one get caught out there flying in the private jets.
He's not the only one. They're all doing it.
I know.
They're living large. They already live large, but they feel now we got the government, we got power, we do what we want to do. We do exactly what we want to do. We don't care. We got here. And then you add up another part, with the Russians and the whole business of them tapping into our election, running ads.
Right.
Facebook, if you think about this, Facebook claims that they're innocent in what the Russians were doing. Targeting our communities, by the way, these ads, some of these ads. Targeted at us, at African Americans in Baltimore and Ferguson, stirring up racial resentment. So Facebook claims that they're taking the money, they're getting paid for the ads, they're claiming they don't know what's in the ads. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Right.
These are some really smart people at Facebook, right?
Oh, absolutely.
That's how they sell themselves. We're really smart people. Well, you can't figure this out. You're taking the money, you're buying the ads. That's how this works, right? It's a business transaction. You give me money, we give you space for ads.
Right.
And you don't know what's coming over your line. I don't buy that one.
Right.
Because there's so many of them. It wasn't like a handful. It was many, many, many ads that they were running.
No, you're absolutely right. And we didn't even get into the whole area of Russia. You're right. We didn't even talk on that yet. We've been talking for the last almost 45 minutes now, and we didn't even bring that into it. But that played a big part as well. And see, this is what I was talking. At what point, because I'm going back to Abraham Lincoln's quote, government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. At what point, because right now I don't see this as government of the people, or I could be wrong. And that's why I said maybe it is. Because I don't, at what point do the people all get together and say, you know what, enough of this, we're going to have to overthrow the government?
Yes, Yes. Oh, well, I don't, one of the concerns is that people haven't had enough. They want this guy to do more.
Right. And that's exactly bingo. And that to me is even worse than the fact that Trump is in there, is that you have enough people that want him to do more of that.
And yes, they want him to do more. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And I've been, like a lot of people, just, getting up in the morning and really lamenting this idea that he's the president. He's the president. He hasn't been here a year yet. And like you said earlier, you can't contrast him with the previous president, who's eloquent, who's stately in his presentation always, intelligent, all those positive virtues that we would want in a leader in terms of how a leader presents him or herself. He's the absolute opposite of all of that.
He is, very much so. And I tell folks when we had these discussions, if you even listen in the campaign, it was almost like he had a true disdain for Hillary, for McCain, and for Romney because they lost to Obama.
Oh, my.
It was almost as if you ever heard him talk about those three. Now, he called everybody a loser, but he had an extra umph in calling them losers.
Yeah.
And what he really was saying was, you three lost to that black man. Now, it's one thing to lose, but you lost to that black man.
You're not supposed to lose, not in the United States of America.
Absolutely.
So you're supposed to be able to blow those whistles, right? That's
right.
what you're saying.
Right.
That's all you had to do is blow your whistle.
Right.
Blow your white.
Like, what's wrong with you three? That was kind of like.
Yeah.
And it's come through, even if you remember, whenever he went off on McCain, because that's why I think McCain's pretty decent anyway, because he always talked about reaching across the aisle. But that's part of the thing the reason why McCain is not going with anything that Trump says, because if you remember when he was on the campaign, how he disrespected his being the prisoner of war. He had that whole commentary going on. And see, again, and the same thing with Romney. He played Mitt again when this whole thing of courting him for the vice presidency or whatever. He knows exactly what he's doing in terms of trying to berate people.
Yeah.
And those three, he really took a vengeance after. And again, this is my opinion. It's not necessarily a fact, but my opinion is because those three lost to Obama, he had a special infinity for. And then the same thing, like you were just talking about everything being rolled back. Think about that campaign slogan was "Make America Great Again." So, making America great again means prior to all these things that were in place. So therefore, I'm going to take all these things away again so we can make America great again.
That's the way they say it again. They say.
Yeah, I'm going to take everything that came from the civil rights movement. I'm going to take everything that came from the women's movement. I'm going to take everything that had anything to do with anybody else becoming successful other than Caucasians. I'm going to remove that again. And that's what's going to make America great again.
So they claim.
Right.
Yeah, so, this whole, but you can't go back. There's some things that were practiced in the past will not be practiced again. But they can have negative impact. It can mean fewer people with health insurance. It seems like they don't want to give that up. They want to revisit that at some point. They're intent on rolling back the clock. They really are.
What's
way of looking at it.
Just like what we just said. Roll back that clock to where America was great. Because during that time frame, in their minds, America was not great. So we got to roll that clock back to when America was great. You were saying earlier about, being on the college campus with young people. Because I'm on matter of fact, the show is hosted out of college campus. I personally, and I could be wrong, but I personally don't think our young people are going to take but so much.
I agree. I wish, one of the complaints I had during the campaign, and sometimes your young people just takes a while before they see it. I wish they would have saw it before the election.
Right.
And there were a few people in our community who were out there, I think, not being totally responsible. There's some of the prominent voices who were supporting people like Jill Stein. I thought was a huge mistake. After the nomination, you're supposed to get on board because of the choices we had. And there were still people running around. I probably shouldn't say their names right now, but supporting Jill Stein. And what I mean is going before young people, young African Americans, telling them to support Jill Stein. This was not the election,
right?
To do that. This is an either or election. It's absolutely one of those elections.
Correct.
You got to stop Trump. So if you're a prominent voice, intellectual, and you're out there and people listen to you, you should not be out there telling young people to support Jill Stein. Not in 2017,
right?
2016 when the election was held. It's the wrong move. It's an irresponsible move because now we all have to deal with this character for 4 years, and he's rolling back everything. So all these young people who will leave college in 3-4 years, they will hit this society looking for opportunity.
Correct.
And these things will be in place. We got a Supreme Court now. This is one of the byproducts, right?
Correct.
Presidency, you get the court. Scalia is gone. Now who's going to get that seat? They robbed Obama of it already, so you can't. You got to get the White House. You can't let Trump get the White House. That was just something, an aside that I wanted to complain about. There was a couple of very prominent African American intellectuals.
No, you're right, because I could not agree with you more. That was not a time to split the vote.
No.
It just was not. I mean, even though Hillary did win the popular vote, still when it came down to the Electoral College, we still needed as many delegates as we could get. So you're right. That was not the time to split the vote. It wasn't.
Right. It wasn't. It wasn't at all. And, there were people who called them on this. But they're so committed to their position, to their ideology, they couldn't budge. And those of us who were questioning what they're doing are right. He's in there now. And every single thing we worry about, he's doing. He's doing it in a manner, and he's doing it in a very crude,
right,
Trumpian way.
Right.
Trump is crude.
Yeah, he is, and again, yeah, right. And he was crude during the campaign. He was crude in all his business dealings, and yet the country said yes. I mean, first off, I was amazed that he got past the other 17 Republican candidates. That was, I mean, you had folks on that dais that were politically astute. And so I got it if folks said they really didn't. Okay, but you had Carly Fiorina on there who didn't have any political experience. You had Ben Carson on there who didn't have political experience. You had a couple who didn't have political experience. But somehow, again, he got around them. And you're right. It was back to that manipulation. It was back to playing on folks' fears and anger. Yeah. And he was able to get around 17 other candidates and plus 5 on the Democratic side. So out of 22, 23 candidates running, that's who we wound up with.
Wound up with him. He figured it out.
Right.
He figured out he did the group out here, and he said it. I can be on Fifth Avenue.
He did.
And my followers aren't going anywhere.
He absolutely did. That I could stand off and shoot somebody, and I'd still win. That he did. So in terms of the book, in terms of news, you all were with the CBC. It looks like from all the pictures and everything I've heard, it looked like it went well. What was the receptivity?
I only went down there one day. I had some other engagements, but the day I was there went very well. The CBC setup is huge in the convention center, so there were other vendors who were selling everything from books to jewelry.
Right.
So they have a huge space where all the vendors were. And Howard University Bookstore was one of the vendors, and it had several books on display. Ours was one of them. And the way they set it up, they had the university bookstore had a table, and then around their bigger table were smaller tables for individual authors if they wanted to set up their own space for 2-3 hours or whatever. So that's how we did it. It went well.
Were you able to get it into the hands of some of the Congressional Black Caucus members?
I personally wasn't able to. I would need to speak, and I haven't asked anybody. To my knowledge, no, but I don't know. Either.
But you're right.
I don't.
I was telling Io one time, I said, I would not be surprised if it didn't land somewhere in the president's desk or one of his assistants or somebody, only because anything that has his name in it or about him, he makes sure he reads or get a copy of.
Right. He wants to see what's going on.
Right.
Changes anywhere. That's how he is.
Right. So I would not be surprised. I wouldn't be naive. I mean, you just never know, but I wouldn't be surprised. That's all I'm saying. I wouldn't be surprised if a copy didn't make its way somewhere in the White House.
Yeah, and we have, at Howard, there's a person who's in administration. I don't know what her status is these days. I think she's been sort of Omarosa.
Yes.
She's affiliated with Howard as well, so she was presumably his liaison between him and the African American community.
Oh, well, I'd definitely send her a copy then. I'd make sure I would send her one.
Yeah, so that's a possibility because they did advertise it pretty strongly on the campus.
Right.
So, me just walking on campus, I would hear people yell out my name, hey, congratulations, and I haven't heard or seen these people in a long time, so I've been getting a lot of that.
Right.
Which is good, which is very good.
It is. I mean, whenever, Io told me about it, I was excited for all of you all, and I said, the concept definitely is appropriate and timely. So, so what I do for the last few minutes, because we're coming down near the end, what I do for the last few minutes is give the opportunity to promote. You can shout out anybody you like. You can promote. You can do anything with the exception of saying a dollar amount. But anything short of that, I turn the mic off and it's yours to promote however you will.
Certainly I want people to look for News Chaser. You can go online and type it up, News Chaser, the rhetoric of Trump in essays and commentaries. It's a collection of some of the most powerful thinkers. I have Malefi Asante, Clarence Hussein, Kola Abimbola, and many others writing some important chapters on important issues that is happening right now, current, with the Trump administration and with some of the policy proposals that are coming out of that space, what they portend for a number of communities, of course, the African American community, but not limited to us. We're talking about immigrants, Muslims, sort of religious in the religious realm, women. All these groups have been targeted in some form or fashion by some of the policy proposals coming out of the White House. So this book covers many of those issues.
That's right.
It's easy to get.
I concur. For me, and this is where I'm kind of, I love material and books that will challenge me to think. In other words, even whenever I have a blog, it's called A Critical Thinker. I may not be the most critically thinking person in the world, but I do like critical thinking in terms of you may not agree or disagree. But at least consider. It might be something, I never thought about it that way. And a book like this, particularly for the groups that are targets, I would hope it would almost act as an awakening. Like, wait a minute, I didn't think about that. Wait a minute, the way this chapter came across gave me something to think about. It gave me something now. Maybe I need to galvanize and get some groups of people together and start really, getting some protests or some. It got me to the point the other day. This whole thing I was telling you about the government by the people. I actually did one of these online petitions. I don't know. I got to go check to see how many people signed onto it. But I did one of these online petitions to the White House that the people need to take the government back. Yeah. Like this is the administration is supposed to be for the people, not the people for the administration.
No, it's not that way. Not with this administration.
No, it's not. And that's where the people have to rise up and say, no, you're not doing. And that's the only reason why I have to always fall back on that question mark. The rhetorical question is, well, maybe the reason we're not hearing an outcry or a pushback is because the administration really is doing what people want them to do, which is a scary thought, because then that's where your book, News Chaser, comes in for those of us who are on the real victim side, not on the flip the script victim side. Right. Because you're right. I laugh whenever I hate to laugh. It's not funny, but if you really pick apart the words reverse racism, there could be no such thing. Because if you didn't have racism to begin with, you can't reverse it. Right. There is no such thing as reverse racism.
Stop it.
Right.
Stop it. Right. Stop doing it.
Right, because you're going to say, well, I'm experiencing reverse racism. Now you're racist. You're being racist against me because I'm white. No, that's not reverse racism. Racism is racism.
That's right.
So there's no such thing as reverse racism. So like you said, we got to cut out racism altogether.
Altogether, all of it.
Yes.
And this guy has made it fashionable.
Yes.
That's the real danger for us. Is this thing is now, they've taken the lid off, and all this stuff is out here now.
Well, it is, because I mean, and this will be the last point before I let you go. But if you contrast, like you were talking about Charlottesville, if you contrast the president's commentary on Charlottesville and his commentary on Colin Kaepernick and the players in the NFL, it's stark. Yeah. The passion that was said with the NFL owners and the players, calling them SOBs, that and the other, was nowhere close.
Yeah, there you go, right there.
To what was said, right? To what was said about Charlottesville, and it took him. The first statement was really kind of pithy. And then everybody challenged the president, that's nowhere close to what really what we need to hear about Charlottesville. So he waited a couple days. He went back and said, I didn't have enough information. I wanted to wait till I got information, yada, yada, yada. The next statement was a written statement, but wasn't much better. Right. But when he got on the NFL soapbox, he went to town. All the passion was there about the SOBs and they ought to be fired and da-da-da-da-da.
Let's run them out of here.
Yes.
This is the ultimate sending of a message,
Right.
This crowd, this white racist crowd in Huntsville, they eat all of it up.
Right. That's exactly right.
And now they perceive us, black athletes, as undeserving.
Yes.
You're supposed to entertain us and shut up.
That's exactly right.
We're paying you enough. You shouldn't have any voice.
That's exactly right.
We want to control you.
That's exactly right.
Want to control us, no matter what.
And see, the thing is, and this is what I was talking about with your book being, it ought to serve as an awakening, I would hope, because there are so many people that even if we were to propose what we just discussed these last couple of minutes, they would tell us we think too deep. Dr. Harris, Mark, you think too deep. You're looking way too deep into that.
Too much into it. Okay.
Right. Like, no. You need to think a little bit deeper then, if you can't see that.
Absolutely.
All right. Well,
okay.
Folks,
all right. Thank you so.
Hang on. I hope you've been with us the last hour. My guest was Dr. Daryl Harris, PhD. How do you say it? Is that Taiwo? Is that how you say it?
Yes.
It is good. I have this thing about pronouncing names correctly. Daryl Taiwo Harris, PhD, or Dr. Harris. He is editor of the book News Chaser, The Rhetoric of Trump in Essays and Commentaries. I strongly encourage you to get a copy. Because again, as you read the various commentaries, as you read the contributors' thoughts, it ought to make you stop and think like, well, wait a minute, this thing, wow, this is deeper than I thought. This is going to impact whether you are a Trump supporter or not. It's going to impact the masses. And so I encourage you to get the book, read the chapter. Each chapter is its own. It's standalone. Each author, a lot of the contributors have been on the show. But again, the book is News Chaser, The Rhetoric of Trump in Essays and Commentaries. The editor, Daryl Taiwo Harris, PhD. All right. Well, Dr. Harris, thank you so much for rising to join me this morning.
Thank you.
I will get you a copy of this as well as I'll be in touch with IO. But again, thank you so much. And I wish you nothing but the best with News Chaser.
Okay. Thank you again.
All right. Take care.
Yep, take care. Bye.
All right, that wraps up another edition of The Reading Circle with your host, Marc Medley. That was the editor. We've had the various contributors, but this was the man who pulled it all together. Daryl Taiwo Harris, PhD. As I shared with you, he is an associate professor and former chair of political science at Howard University. He was the recipient of a 2014-2015 Fulbright Distinguished Research Award. The scholarly focus of his teaching and research is the philosophical underpinnings of black political phenomena. His work combines methods of Africological. See, I love these big words. I have to sit there and look at them. Africological and political analysis with the goal of advancing Afrocentric understandings of the world. Harris has taught black politics and political theory courses, first at the University of Connecticut and then at Howard University. His current institutional affiliation since 2003. Yes, folks, it is an interesting time. I encourage you all, whether you're in the Bible or not, go to 1 Samuel chapter 8. And I do declare that what's described there in 1 Samuel 8 is exactly what we're experiencing right now. Be careful what you ask for. You just may get it.